Hello guys, this is your friend Multiverse Shinobi 2.0, and we are back with a new fanfic. The Shadows of Neglect. Kanahagakure. The village hidden in the leaves. It was said to be the safest and happiest village in the world, but behind its bright and bustling facade lay a deep darkness, one that would make humanity itself hang its head in shame. Our story begins on the fateful night when the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and Kushina Uzumaki blessed the world with twin boys. One was named Menma, and the other was named Naruto. But destiny played a cruel game. That very night, the nine-tailed demon fox, the Kyuubi, attacked the village. To save their home, Minato split the Kyuubi's chakra into two halves. The Yang chakra was sealed inside Menma, while the Yin chakra was sealed deep within Naruto. To the villagers, Menma became their savior. The child of prophecy. The child who held the Kyuubi's immense power and whom everyone hailed as the protector of the leaf. But Naruto was simply forgotten. Years passed, and time only deepened the rift. Inside the Namikaze compound, every single day was filled with praises for Menma. Minato and Kushina poured all their time, effort, and love into training Menma, teaching him complex ninjutsu and perfecting his chakra control. Meanwhile, in a small, cold, and dark room of that very same house, a 5-year-old boy would sit by the window, staring blankly outside. That boy was Naruto. "Mom, will you teach me how to throw a kunai today?" A young Naruto asked one afternoon, summoning all his courage as he gently tugged at Kushina's sleeve. Kushina turned around. Her eyes didn't hold hatred, but they held something worse, a cold, hollow indifference. She slowly brushed Naruto's hand away and said, "Not now, Naruto. Menma needs to master his whirlwind technique today. Go back to your room or play outside. Don't disturb us." Naruto clenched his small fists. This wasn't the first time. It happened every single day. Menma got the new scarves, Menma got his favorite dango, and Menma got all the parental love. Naruto's share. It was nothing but stale leftovers and long, lonely nights. The streets of the village were no kinder. Whenever Naruto walked through the marketplace alone, the villagers would stare and whisper maliciously. "Look, there goes the useless brat. He has absolutely no talent. Quote, look at his brother, so great and powerful. And this one, he's just a stain on the Namikaze clan." Naruto heard every single word. His heart bled, but not a single tear fell from his eyes. His sorrow was slowly hardening into a quiet, burning rage. He realized early on that in this harsh world, if there is anyone you can truly rely on, it is yourself. If you do not possess power, even your own parents will cast you aside. The Secret Awakening. By the time Naruto turned 7, he had mastered a unique skill within the Namikaze household, the art of being invisible. He had learned to suppress his chakra so perfectly that no one could even sense his presence, even if he was standing right in the dark corner of the room. One night, while the entire house was fast asleep, Naruto quietly slipped into Minato's personal library. He knew he would be severely punished if caught, but he didn't care anymore. He needed power. Sifting through the dust-covered shelves, his eyes fell upon an ancient, jet-black scroll. It bore no name, only a strange, intricate sealing formula. The moment Naruto's fingers brushed against the scroll, the Yin Kyuubi seal on his stomach burned with a blinding light. Swoosh! Naruto's vision went pitch black, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself standing in a massive, flooded sewer-like chamber. Before him stood towering iron bars, and from behind those bars, two colossal, crimson eyes gleamed with pure malice. "So, my container finally comes to face me," a deep, booming voice echoed, shaking the very foundations of the mindscape. Naruto didn't flinch. He raised his piercing blue eyes and looked directly at the massive beast. "You are the Kyuubi, aren't you? HMPH. Sharp brat. Yes, I am. And you are the son of that pathetic Minato, who cannot even recognize his own flesh and blood. I expected you to cry, to scream in terror, but your eyes, they hold nothing but a cold, burning hatred. I like that, child. The Kyuubi chuckled darkly. I don't care about hatred, Naruto said, his voice eerily calm and steady for a 7-year-old. I need power. Enough power so that no one can ever look down on me or ignore me again. Will you help me? The Kyuubi fell silent for a moment, examining the massive reserves of yin chakra within Naruto and his unbreakable willpower. Yin chakra is the source of imagination, spiritual energy, and conceptual power. Intriguing. Menma holds only my raw physical chakra, but you hold my mind, my spirit, and my true essence. Very well, Naruto. I will train you. Let us show this pathetic village who the true god of shinobi is. After that fateful night, Naruto's life split into two completely different worlds. By day, he attended the Shinobi Academy, where he deliberately wore the mask of a below-average, dead-last student so no one would suspect a thing. He intentionally missed targets during kunai throwing and scored poorly on written exams. Minato and Kushina completely gave up on him, believing he had no future as a shinobi, and poured all their attention solely into Menma. But by night, when the world slept, Naruto ventured deep into the deadliest and most forbidden zone of Konoha, the Forest of Death. Under the brutal and precise guidance of the Kyuubi, Naruto began manipulating his massive yin energy. He learned how to shape and mold chakra without using any hand signs. With the Kyuubi's help, he mastered the Shadow Clone Jutsu, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. But unlike ordinary shinobi who could only make a few, Naruto could summon hundreds of clones, and the mental feedback of all their training went directly into his brain. His training was nothing short of monstrous. He could shatter massive boulders without even touching them, using purely the raw pressure of his chakra. His speed increased to the point where he could vanish into thin air like a ghost without using any active jutsu. He was quietly becoming completely overpowered, and not a single soul in Konoha had the slightest clue. The mask of the dead last. Years flew by like a fleeting shadow, and the day of the Genin graduation exam had finally arrived at the Shinobi Academy. The atmosphere was buzzing with excitement. Parents had gathered outside, and among them were Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, standing proudly to watch their star son, Menma, claim the title of Rookie of the Year. Inside the classroom, Iruka Yumino called out the names one by one. Next, Menma Namikaze. Menma stepped forward with a smug, arrogant grin plastered across his face. He looked back at his classmates, his eyes lingering on Naruto, who was sitting in the back row, his head resting on his desk, seaman. Gly asleep. Menma scoffed. To him, his twin brother was nothing more than a shadow, a useless extra in his grand story. With flawless precision, Menma threw 3 kunai and 3 shuriken, hitting the dead center of every target. The crowd outside erupted into cheers. Next came the ninjutsu test. With a single hand sign, Menma channeled his Yonkyubi chakra and created 3 solid shadow clones. Excellent. Perfect score, Iruka announced, beaming with pride. Minato nodded approvingly from the audience, while Kushina cheered loudly, waving at her favorite son. Next, Naruto Namikaze. Iruka's voice dropped slightly, carrying a hint of pity. Naruto stood up slowly. He wore a plain, dark hoodie, his bangs casting a deep shadow over his piercing blue eyes. As he walked down the steps, whispers broke out among the students and the parents outside. Oh, look, it's the other brother. The failure. I wonder if he'll even manage to pass. It's embarrassing for the Hokage to have a son like him. Naruto ignored them completely. Their words meant absolutely nothing to him. He stepped up to the throwing line. To the untrained eye, his posture looked sloppy and careless. He picked up the kunai and threw them. Thwack, thwack, thwack. 2 hit the outer rings, and 1 barely nicked the edge of the target. A passing score, but barely. Now, the clone jutsu, Naruto, Iruka said gently. Naruto raised his hand and formed a basic hand sign, intentionally letting his chakra flicker unevenly. With a small puff of smoke, a pathetic, pale, and distorted clone materialized on the floor, instantly dissolving into nothingness. The classroom burst into laughter. Menma snickered loudly. Hey, dead last. Maybe you should just stay home and cook. Being a ninja isn't for weaklings. Outside, Minato sighed, a look of disappointment crossing his face, while Kushina simply turned her eyes away, focusing back on Menma. They didn't see the faint, cold smirk that played on Naruto's lips for a split second. Idiots, a deep, booming voice echoed inside Naruto's mind. The Kyuubi was laughing. If only they knew that the chakra you just suppressed could crush this entire academy into dust. Single quote. Let them laugh, Kurama, Naruto replied mentally, using the beast's true name. The higher they build their tower of arrogance, the harder they will fall. Because Naruto had failed the clone exam, he was technically rejected. He quietly walked out of the academy through the back door, avoiding the celebratory crowds. He walked toward his favorite spot, a solitary cliff on the outskirts of the village, overlooking the Hokage monument. But his peaceful silence didn't last long. Hey, kid. Naruto didn't turn around. He already knew who it was. Mizuki, one of the academy instructors, stepped out from the shadows of the trees, a sinister, manipulative smile on his face. You know, Naruto, Iruka didn't want to fail you, Mizuki lied smoothly, stepping closer. But the rules are strict. However, there is a secret way. A special test designed only for those who have true potential. Quote. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly under his bangs. A secret test, he thought. What kind of test? Naruto asked, playing along, keeping his voice sounding naive and desperate. Mizuki's smile widened, believing he had successfully trapped his prey. Tonight, you must slip into the Hokage's residence. In the Forbidden Vault, there is a massive scroll called the Scroll of Seals. Take it, bring it to the abandoned shack in the Forest of Death, and learn one jutsu from it. Do that, and I personally promise you, you will graduate as a genin. Naruto stood still for a moment, facing away from Mizuki. Inside his mindscape, Kurama was grinning, exposing rows of razor-sharp teeth. The Scroll of Seals. First Hokage's personal collection of forbidden jutsu, Kurama chuckled darkly. This fool is giving us a golden opportunity on a silver platter. Naruto turned his head slightly, showing a glimpse of a desperate, wide-eyed look to satisfy Mizuki's expectations. Really? If I do that, will I really become a ninja? Yes, Naruto. Absolutely, Mizuki purred. But remember, it's a secret. Don't tell a single soul. Especially not your parents or Lord Hokage. Okay, I'll do it, Naruto said. As Mizuki's body flickered away, disappearing into the trees, the desperate look on Naruto's face vanished instantly, replaced by a gaze so cold it could freeze fire. The stage was set. The mask of the dead last was about to shatter, and Konoha was nowhere near ready for the monster they had created in the dark. The night of revelations. The night sky was covered in thick, dark clouds, hiding the moon and plunging Konoha into deep shadows. Inside the Hokage's residence, Naruto moved like a ghost. To a normal shinobi, sneaking past the Anbu guards would be impossible. But to Naruto, who had trained his chakra suppression to an absolute godly level under Kurama's guidance, it was child's play. He didn't just suppress his chakra, he merged his presence with the shadows themselves. Within minutes, he walked out of the residence with the massive scroll of seals strapped firmly to his back, slipping unnoticed into the depths of the Forest of Death. Sitting in the abandoned shack, Naruto unrolled the scroll. His sharp eyes scanned the forbidden techniques. Edo Tensai. Hiraishin. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Interesting. Naruto thought, a cold smile dancing on his lips. Most of these are just advanced applications of things I've already mastered. Naruto. A sharp voice broke the silence. Naruto didn't even flinch. He slowly rolled up the scroll as Iruka burst through the door, panting heavily, sweat pouring down his face. Iruka-sensei. Naruto said, his voice completely flat, lacking any of the panic a normal kid would have. Naruto. What have you done? Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? The Anbu and your father are searching the entire village for you. Iruka gasped, stepping forward. Why did you steal the sacred scroll? Naruto tilted his head, acting confused. But Mizuki-sensei told me to. He said if I brought this scroll here and learned a jutsu, I would pass the exam and become a ninja. Quote. Iruka's eyes widened in pure horror. Mizuki. No. It can't be. Ha ha ha. A sinister, mocking laughter echoed from the trees outside. Suddenly, a barrage of giant shuriken shattered the windows of the shack. Iruka reacted instantly, pushing Naruto out of the way, taking the hit. Several shuriken pierced Iruka's back, sending him crashing to the floor, coughing up blood. Mizuki stepped into the moonlight, landing on a thick tree branch. He carried a massive shuriken on his back, his face twisted into a demonic grin. Well, excellent job, Naruto. You actually managed to steal it. Now, hand over the scroll. Mizuki. You traitor. Iruka growled, struggling to stand up despite his bleeding wounds. Don't give it to him, Naruto. That scroll contains dangerous secrets that could destroy this village. Mizuki laughed maniacally. Destroy the village. Oh, Iruka, you are so naive. Let me tell you a secret, Naruto. A secret that the Hokage, your precious parents, and the entire village have been hiding from you your whole life. Mizuki. Stop. It's forbidden. Iruka screamed desperately. 12 years ago, the nine-tailed fox didn't just disappear. Mizuki yelled, his eyes locking onto Naruto. A law was made to hide the truth. Your brother Menma holds the beast's power, yes. But you, Naruto, you are the monster itself. You are the reincarnation of the Kyuubi that slaughtered our people. That's why your parents ignore you. That's why the village hates you. You are nothing but a cursed demon. Quote. The forest fell dead silent. Iruka closed his eyes, expecting Naruto to break down, cry, or scream in agony. But nothing happened. Naruto stood perfectly still under the moonlight. Suddenly, a low, quiet chuckle escaped his lips. The chuckle grew into a cold, dark laughter that sent shivers down Mizuki's spine. Is that it? Naruto asked, raising his face. For the first time, his bangs shifted, revealing his eyes. They weren't blue anymore. They were a piercing, glowing crimson with slit pupils. What does that look? Mizuki's smirk faltered. You think this is news to me, Mizuki? Naruto said, his voice dropping into a terrifyingly deep, dual tone, his own voice layered with the booming echo of the Kyuubi. I've known about Kurama since I was 7. And unlike my pathetic brother, who only plays with raw chakra like a toddler, I have mastered the true essence of the god of shinobi. Before Mizuki could even comprehend what was happening, the air around them grew heavy. The atmospheric pressure skyrocketed. The ground beneath Naruto began to crack and shatter, dust swirling violently into the air. A massive, suffocating wave of dense, crimson and black chakra erupted from Naruto's body, forming a towering aura of a giant fox behind him. Iruka couldn't breathe. He fell to his knees, paralyzed by pure, unadulterated terror. This chakra, it's heavier than the Hokage's. It's like the ocean itself is crushing us. Mizuki's face drained of all color. His arrogant smile was replaced by sheer, primal panic. He scrambled backward on the tree branch. No. This is impossible. You're just a dead last. A failure. You wanted to see a monster, Mizuki. Naruto smirked, his hand forming a single, effortless cross sign. The wrath of the forgotten sun. The forest of death was trembling. Trees groaned under the sheer weight of the dense, suffocating chakra expanding from Naruto's body. The sky above seemed to darken as the crimson aura stained the moonlight. Mizuki was shaking violently. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs felt like they were nailed to the tree branch. And no. You're a monster, he stammered, pulling the giant shuriken from his back with trembling hands. Die. Just die. With a desperate scream, Mizuki hurled the massive blade at Naruto with all his remaining strength. The shuriken ripped through the air, spinning at a deadly speed. Naruto didn't even blink. He didn't lift a kunai. He didn't move an inch. As the lethal blade came within inches of his face, Naruto simply flared his chakra. A sharp shockwave of condensed yin energy erupted from his body. Boom. The giant metal shuriken didn't just stop. It shattered into 1,000 tiny metallic pieces, raining down onto the forest floor. Mizuki. Naruto's voice echoed, cold and hollow. You dared to use me as a pawn. For that, your punishment is absolute. Naruto crossed his index and middle fingers. He didn't whisper the jutsu. His voice carried the authority of a god. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu. Quote. Pop, 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 pop. In an instant, the entire clearing, the tree branches, the rooftops of the abandoned shacks, and the sky itself were filled with Naruto. Not 10, not 50, but over 1,000 clones. And unlike ordinary shadow clones that looked pale or weak, every single one of these clones emitted a dense, crushing pressure. They weren't illusions. They were a solid, living army. Mizuki collapsed to his knees, staring at the sea of crimson-eyed Narutos surrounding him from every single angle. Mercy. Please. He whimpered, tears of pure terror streaming down his face. Mercy is for the weak. All 1,000 clones spoke in perfect, terrifying unison. And I am anything but weak. Before Mizuki could scream, the clones moved. They didn't even use jutsu. Their speed was so blinding that they appeared as flashes of black and red light. A brutal, flawless barrage of taijutsu struck Mizuki from every direction, shattering his bones and erasing his consciousness within seconds. He fell to the ground, a broken, bloody mess, completely defeated. Naruto dispelled his clones with a quiet sigh. The crushing pressure vanished, and the forest fell into a dead, eerie silence. Iruka, who had been watching the entire spectacle from the floor, was gasping for air. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He looked at the 12-year-old boy standing under the moonlight. This wasn't the dead last student he thought he knew. This was a force of nature. Naruto. Quote. Iruka managed to choke out, his voice trembling. How long have you been this strong? Naruto turned his head slightly, his eyes returning to their natural, piercing blue. He looked down at his bleeding teacher. For a moment, a flash of genuine respect passed through Naruto's eyes. Iruka was the only one who had tried to save him tonight. Long enough, Iruka-sensei, Naruto said calmly. Suddenly, multiple sharp winds sliced through the trees. The space around the clearing began to warp. Flashes of light appeared. Swish, swish, swish. A full squad of Anbu Black Ops dropped from the canopy, drawing their swords, instantly surrounding Naruto. Right in the center of the squad, a flash of yellow light materialized. It was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, wearing his iconic white and red cloak. Right behind him, bursting through the bushes, was Kushina Uzumaki and a smug-looking Menma. Naruto. Step away from the scroll. Minato commanded, his voice stern and authoritative, his eyes scanning the destruction. Do you have any idea what you have done? Stealing a forbidden artifact is treason. Kushina looked at Naruto with a mixture of anger and deep disappointment. Naruto. How could you do this? We raised you better. Look at how much trouble you are causing your father and your brother. Menma stepped forward, crossing his arms, looking down on his twin with pure arrogance. I knew it. You're just a pathetic loser who wanted attention because you failed the academy. Hand over the scroll, dead last. You don't deserve to touch it. Naruto stood perfectly still, listening to his family. A cold, bitter smile formed on his face. They didn't ask if he was okay. They didn't ask why Mizuki was lying beaten on the floor. They didn't see that Iruka was bleeding. All they saw was a failure who had stepped out of line. Naruto slowly unstrapped the massive scroll of seals from his back and tossed it carelessly into the dirt at Minato's feet. Take your scroll, Lord Fourth, Naruto said, his voice entirely devoid of emotion. Minato flinched at the formal title. Lord Fourth. Not Dad. Naruto. Explain yourself right now. Minato demanded, stepping forward. Naruto raised his eyes, looking directly into his father's gaze. The sheer coldness in Naruto's eyes made the seasoned Hokage stop dead in his tracks. There is nothing to explain, Naruto said quietly, his voice echoing through the silent forest. The mask is off. From this day on, do not look for the sun you threw away in the dark. Because the next time we stand against each other, you won't be facing a failure. You will be facing the consequences of your own neglect. Before any Anbu or Minato could react, Naruto's body simply dissolved into a flock of dark, shadow-like crows, vanishing completely into the night air. It was a high-level body flicker that left absolutely no residual chakra trace. Minato's eyes widened in pure shock. He disappeared. Without a hand sign. Even my sensory network can't trace him. Kushina gasped, clutching her chest as a sudden, overwhelming feeling of dread washed over her. For the first time in 12 years, she realized that the quiet boy who lived in the dark room of her house was someone they didn't know at all. The outcast's path. The morning sun began to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. But inside the Namikaze compound, there was no warmth. The atmosphere was dead silent, heavier than ice. Minato sat at the dining table, his head buried in his hands. Kushina stared blankly at the empty plate in front of her, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. They had searched the entire village. The Anbu tracking units, the Inuzuka Ninken dogs, and even Minato's own sensory network had found absolutely nothing. Naruto had completely erased his existence from Konoha. How could he be that strong? Menma muttered, his usual arrogant smirk replaced by a look of deep frustration and fear. He was the dead last. He failed every test. It makes no sense. He didn't fail. Minato said, his voice hollow and full of regret. He was hiding it from us. All those years, while we ignored him, he was building an empire of power right under our noses. And we were too blind to notice. Meanwhile, miles away from Konoha, deep inside an ancient, forgotten ruin hidden behind an impenetrable barrier of yin chakra, Naruto stood. Looking down at a vast underground training chamber. This was his sanctuary, a base he had built in total secrecy over the last 3 years with Kurama's help. His plain academy clothes were gone. Now, he wore a high-collared, jet-black cloak with crimson linings, a perfect reflection of his dark, absolute power. So, the ties are finally severed, Kurama's voice echoed in his mind, no longer roaring, but sounding deeply satisfied. You shook that pathetic Hokage to his very core, Naruto. The look on his face was priceless. Quote. Naruto allowed a cold, sharp smirk to appear on his face. This is just the beginning, Kurama. Konoha thinks they understand power because they have my brother and the Yang chakra. They have no idea what true terror looks like. Quote. Naruto walked over to a massive stone table in the center of the room. Resting on it were several blank scrolls and a dark, obsidian forehead protector with a single, horizontal scratch carved perfectly across the Konoha symbol. He was no longer a shinobi of the leaf. He belonged to no one but himself. The Chunin exams will take place in a few months, Naruto said, his eyes glowing with a calm, calculating brilliance. That is when the world's eyes will be on Konoha. That is when we make our official move. And what about your team? Kurama asked, a sinister grin appearing in the mindscape. You cannot reshape the shinobi world entirely alone. Naruto looked toward the shadows at the back of the room. From the darkness, three figures stepped forward, their faces completely concealed by dark cloaks, but their eyes burning with intense loyalty and terrifying chakra signatures. These were people Naruto had secretly saved, trained, and recruited from the shadows of the war-torn nations, outcasts just like him, who possessed monstrous, hidden potential. They are ready, Naruto replied, looking at his secret squad. The world rejected us, so we will build a new order from their ashes. Naruto stepped toward the edge of the cliff outside his base, looking out over the vast, open world. The wind whipped his black cloak violently around him. Part 1 of his story was over. The neglected child of the Namikaze clan was dead. In his place stood a shadow god, waiting for the perfect moment to reclaim everything. Let them celebrate their fake peace for a little longer, Naruto whispered into the wind, his eyes shifting into the terrifying, crimson slit of the Kyuubi. Because when Part 2 begins, the world will finally know my name.